I remember exactly what time it was because I kept staring at my phone like somehow the screen might explain what was happening. 12:03 a.m. The kind of quiet where even the hum of the refrigerator feels too loud. I had been lying on the couch in my apartment, TV on but muted, replaying the same conversation in my head for the 100th time. 3 days earlier, my girlfriend, Lauren, had told me she needed space. Not a breakup, she said, just space. That vague, slippery word people use when they're already halfway out the door but don't want to deal with the fallout yet. She'd packed a small bag, said she was going to stay with a friend, and kissed me on the cheek like I was a distant relative instead of the man she'd lived with for 2 years. At first, I tried to play it cool, told myself it was normal. People go through rough patches. But by the second night, the silence in the apartment started to feel heavy, like it was pressing down on my chest. Her coffee mug was still in the sink. Her shoes were still by the door. Her hair tie was on the bathroom counter. All these little things that made it feel like she was still there, except she wasn't. And she wasn't answering my texts. Not completely ghosting me, but close enough. Short replies, delayed responses, the kind of communication that feels more like obligation than connection. So yeah, by midnight on the third night, I wasn't exactly in a great headspace. I'd had 2 beers, maybe 3. Not enough to be drunk, just enough to take the edge off. I was lying there, staring at the ceiling, trying not to imagine where she was, who she was with, what space actually meant in real terms. That's when I heard the knock. It wasn't loud, not aggressive, just deliberate. 3 steady taps on the door. I froze. For a second, I thought I imagined it. My brain had been running nonstop, jumping from one paranoid thought to another. It wouldn't have been crazy for it to invent a sound too. Then it came again. 3 more knocks. Same rhythm. I sat up slowly, my heart already starting to pound for no clear reason. It's weird how your body can sense something before your brain catches up. Like some part of me already knew this wasn't normal. Nobody shows up unannounced at midnight. Not where I live. Not in a quiet suburban apartment complex where people complain if you play music past 10. My first thought was Lauren, and I wish I could say that thought made me happy, relieved. But it didn't. It made my stomach drop. Because if she was knocking on my door at midnight, something had gone very wrong. I stood up and walked toward the door, each step feeling heavier than it should. I didn't turn on the lights. I don't know why. Maybe I didn't want whoever was out there to know I was coming. I stopped just short of the door and listened. Nothing. No footsteps, no voices, just silence on the other side. "Hello?" I said, my voice sounding quieter than I intended. No response. For a moment, I considered just ignoring it, pretending I wasn't home, letting whoever it was go away. But my curiosity, and honestly, my anxiety, wouldn't let me. I leaned forward and looked through the people. At first, all I saw was darkness. The hallway light must have been out. I could barely make out shapes. Then something moved. A figure shifted slightly, just enough for me to see the outline of a person standing there. My chest tightened. "Lauren?" I said, a little louder this time. Still no answer. I hesitated. My hand hovered over the lock. Every instinct was telling me to be careful, but another part of me, the part that had been missing her, worrying about her, was already convincing me to open the door. So I did. I unlocked it, slowly turned the handle, and pulled the door open just a few inches at first. "Lauren?" The hallway light flickered on at that exact moment, like something out of a bad movie. And it wasn't Lauren. It was a woman I had never seen before. She looked to be in her early 30s, maybe. Dark hair pulled back into a messy ponytail. She was wearing a gray hoodie and jeans. Nothing unusual about that. But her face, there was something off about it. Not physically, but emotionally. Like she'd been crying, but not recently. Her eyes were red, tired, focused. On me. "Are you Daniel?" she asked. Hearing my name from a stranger at midnight did something to me I can't fully explain. It wasn't fear exactly. It was a sharp, cold awareness. Like suddenly I was fully awake. "Yeah," I said cautiously. "Who are you?" She didn't answer right away. She just stared at me for a second longer, like she was confirming something in her head. Then she took a small step closer. "I need to talk to you," she said. Everything about this felt wrong. "About what?" I asked. She glanced down the hallway, then back at me. "Can I come in?" "No," I said immediately. Too fast, probably, but I didn't care. "You can tell me from there. Something in her expression shifted. Not anger, more like resignation. "Okay," she said quietly. "This is going to sound crazy." I let out a short, humorless breath. "Yeah, I'm already there." She swallowed, like she was bracing herself. "It's about Lauren." The air left my lungs. Every muscle in my body tensed at once. "What about her?" I asked, my voice sharper now. The woman looked me straight in the eyes. "She's not where you think she is." My grip tightened on the door. "And where do I think she is?" I shot back. "With a friend," she said, taking space. "That's what she told you, right?" I didn't respond, but I'm sure my face gave it away. The woman nodded slightly, like that confirmed something for her. "Yeah," she said. "That's what she tells all of them. All of them." That phrase hit me like a punch to the chest. "I think you have the wrong person," I said quickly, even though a part of me already knew she didn't. "I don't," she said calmly. "I've been where you are." I shook my head, starting to feel a mix of anger and disbelief rising up. "Look, I don't know who you are, but you need to—" "She's been staying with my husband," she interrupted. Everything inside me went still. For a second, I genuinely thought I misheard her. "I'm sorry, what?" I said. "My husband," she repeated. "For the past 3 nights. The same 3 nights Lauren had been gone." "No," I said immediately. That's not possible." "She told you she needed space," the woman continued, her voice steady but low. "She packed a bag. She left in the evening. She's been barely responding to your texts." I felt like the floor had tilted under me. "How do you know all that?" I demanded. "Because I saw the messages," she said. "On his phone." I opened my mouth, but nothing came out. My brain was scrambling, trying to find some explanation that made sense. Some way this could all be a misunderstanding, a mistake. But the details, they were too specific, too accurate. "That doesn't prove anything," I said finally, even though my voice lacked conviction. "You could be making this up." She nodded again, like she expected that. "Yeah," she said. "I figured you'd say that." She reached into the pocket of her hoodie, and for the first time, I felt a flicker of real fear. "Hey," I said, taking a step back. "What are you—" She pulled out her phone. "Relax," she said, almost tired. "I'm not here to hurt you." She tapped on the screen a few times, then held the phone out toward me. "Just look." I hesitated. Every instinct was telling me not to. That whatever was on that screen was going to change things in a way I couldn't undo. But I looked anyway, and the moment I did, everything I thought I knew about my relationship, about Lauren, started to unravel. The screen was bright enough that it took my eyes a second to adjust, like my brain was resisting what it was about to see. At first, it looked like just a messaging thread, nothing unusual. Names blurred at the top, a few photos previewed beneath it. My pulse was already climbing before I even focused. Then I saw her name. Lauren. My stomach dropped so fast, it felt like I missed a step on a staircase that wasn't there. "No," I muttered under my breath, almost involuntarily. That's not real." The woman didn't say anything. She just held the phone steady, like she'd done this before, like she knew exactly how long it takes for denial to crack. I leaned in closer, my eyes scanning the messages. "Lauren, I miss you already. He thinks I'm with my friend again. Same story as last time." A reply beneath it, from a contact labeled Mark. "Mark, he still doesn't suspect anything?" "Lauren, not a clue. He's too trusting. It's honestly kind of sad sometimes." My chest tightened so hard I thought I might actually be sick. I could hear my own breathing getting louder in my ears, like I was underwater and panicking. This could be fake," I said quickly, turning my head toward her. "People can fake messages. You know that, right?" She nodded slightly. Scroll. That one word felt heavier than anything she could have shouted. My finger hovered over the screen for a second before I forced myself to move it. The thread expanded. There were more messages. Days of them. Times that matched exactly the nights Lauren had been gone. Late-night conversations. Photos I couldn't fully make out at first, but I could see enough. A hotel room. A glass of wine on a bedside table. Lauren's hand in the frame once, holding someone else's hand. I pulled back instantly, like the phone had burned me. "No," I said again, louder this time. No, this doesn't make sense." My voice cracked halfway through the sentence, and I hated that I could hear it happening. The woman finally spoke again. "That's my husband," she said quietly. "Mark." She pointed at the screen. "And that's her." I looked at her then, really looked at her. The exhaustion in her face wasn't just tiredness. It was something deeper, something worn down over time. "How long?" I asked, but it came out weaker than I wanted. She didn't hesitate. 6 months that I know of. 6 months. The number didn't feel real. It just floated there, disconnected from everything I thought my life had been. "We've been married 8 years," she added. "We have a daughter." That landed differently, heavier. Not because it made what Lauren did worse. I already didn't know how it could get worse, but because it made it real in a way I couldn't dismiss. This wasn't some random misunderstanding or jealous mistake. This was structured, sustained, repeated, intentional. I took a step back from the door again, one hand gripping the frame just to keep myself steady. "You came all the way here for this?" I asked her, still trying to find something to hold on to that wasn't collapsing. "At midnight?" She nodded. "I found out 3 days ago, same night she left you." That detail hit me like another wave. Same night. "So you just tracked me down?" I asked. "I checked his phone," she said. "Saw your number in the messages. Saw her mention you. I figured you didn't know either." I laughed once, but it wasn't humor. It came out broken. "You figured right," I said. We stood there for a second in silence, the hallway light flickering above us, like it couldn't decide whether to stay on or not. My mind kept trying to rewind everything. Every moment with Lauren. Every excuse she'd given me. Every night she came home late saying she was tired. Every time she'd smiled at me like nothing was wrong. And now those memories were shifting, reframing themselves into something darker. I felt stupid. Not in a simple way. In a deep, humiliating way that made my skin feel too tight. "Why tell me?" I finally asked. "What do you want from me?" She looked at me like the answer should have been obvious. "Because I thought maybe you could confirm something," she said. "And because I didn't think I should be the only one sitting with it." I swallowed hard. "You think she's with him right now?" I asked. "I know she is," she said. "I drove by his place before coming here." That made something inside me twist again. "You followed her?" I asked. "No," she corrected. "I followed him." There was a difference in the way she said it. Controlled, focused, not chaotic or emotional like I was starting to feel. "I saw her car there," she continued, "parked outside like she owns the place." My head started shaking slightly, almost without permission. "This is insane," I said. "This is actually insane." "I thought the same thing," she replied, "until I saw it." I looked down at the phone again, even though every instinct told me not to. I scrolled further this time, slower. There were voice notes now, preview transcripts, little fragments of conversations. "Lauren, I can't stay long tonight. He's starting to ask more questions." "Mark, he won't do anything. You said it yourself." "Lauren, I don't know. Sometimes I think he knows more than he says." That line made my stomach tighten again, because I didn't know anything. I wasn't playing some game where I was pretending ignorance while secretly being aware. I was just blind, completely. "I need to sit down," I said suddenly. I wasn't asking. I just turned and walked into the apartment, leaving the door open behind me. I heard her follow after a second, slower, like she wasn't sure if she was supposed to come in or not. I sank onto the edge of the couch, elbows on my knees, staring at the floor like it might give me something solid to focus on. The apartment felt different now. The same space I'd been sitting in all week suddenly felt like it belonged to someone else, like I was just visiting. She stood near the doorway, not fully inside. "I'm not here to attack you," she said quietly. "I just needed to know if you were real in this too." "Real in what?" I muttered. "In what he's doing," she said. "In what she's doing." I let out a slow breath, dragging my hands down my face. "I don't even know what I'm supposed to do with this," I said. "Same," she replied honestly. That honesty hit differently than anything else she'd said so far. For a while, neither of us spoke. The silence inside the apartment was heavier than the hallway silence had been. It felt contained now, trapped. I kept thinking about Lauren's voice, her laugh, the way she used to lean her head on my shoulder when she was tired. And now there were images I couldn't unsee. Her in a hotel room. Her texting another man while sitting across from me at dinner days before she left. Her calling it space, like it was some harmless break, instead of a second life I never knew existed. "I need to see her," I said suddenly. The words came out before I fully formed them in my head. The woman looked up. "You sure that's a good idea?" I shook my head. "No, but I need to." She studied me for a second, then slowly nodded. "I can show you where they are," she said. That should have scared me more than it did. Instead, it just made everything feel inevitable, like whatever was happening had already crossed a line long before she ever knocked on my door. I stood up again, grabbing my keys without thinking. As I walked toward the door, I felt something shift inside me. Not clarity, not resolution, but something sharper. Something that felt like I was about to see the rest of the story, whether I was ready or not. And part of me already knew there was no version of this night that ended the way I expected. I didn't remember locking the door behind me, but I must have, because when I stepped into the hallway again, the sound of it clicking shut felt louder than anything else that night. The woman, Mark's wife, though I still couldn't fully attach that reality to her, was already walking toward the stairwell like she'd made this trip in her head 100 times before. I followed her without speaking. There wasn't really a decision being made anymore. It felt like my body had stopped asking for permission from my mind, like whatever control I had over the situation had already slipped out of my hands hours ago, maybe even days ago, and I was just catching up to it. We didn't take the elevator. Neither of us said why. We just moved, step after step, down the stairwell in silence, the echo of our shoes bouncing off concrete walls that suddenly felt too narrow. Outside, the air was cold in a way I didn't expect. It hit my face and made everything feel sharper, more real. The parking lot lights buzzed overhead, casting everything in a pale yellow glow that made even familiar things look slightly off. Her car was parked near the end of the row, older sedan, nothing fancy. She unlocked it remotely, and the sound of it chirping felt strangely normal compared to everything else happening. I got in the passenger seat without asking. For a second, neither of us moved. Then she started the car. The engine sounded too loud in the quiet. She didn't turn on the radio, didn't adjust the mirrors, just pulled out of the lot like she already knew exactly where she was going. I stared out the window as the apartment complex disappeared behind us. "You've done this before," I said finally, my voice flat. She kept her eyes on the road. "Not like this." I let that sit for a moment. The streets were mostly empty, a few cars here and there, distant headlights passing through intersections. Everything felt normal in the way the world always does when something inside your own life is completely falling apart. "Where are we going exactly?" I asked. She glanced at me briefly. "His place." I swallowed. "You're sure they're there?" She nodded once. I checked the security camera feed earlier, his garage camera. That detail made my stomach tighten again. "You have access to his cameras?" I asked. "He installed them," she said. "I set up the app when we moved in. He never changed the login." There was something in her tone that wasn't pride or anger, just exhaustion, like she'd been carrying all of this alone for longer than she wanted to admit. The car turned onto a wider road now, more commercial, streetlights spaced farther apart, the kind of area where apartment buildings start replacing houses. I found myself gripping the edge of the seat without realizing it. "You didn't confront him first?" I asked. She shook her head slightly. "I did." That caught me off guard. "When?" I asked. "2 nights ago," she said. "He denied everything. Said I was imagining things. Said I was stressed." I exhaled slowly through my nose. "Classic," I muttered. She glanced at me again, a faint, tired expression crossing her face like she almost appreciated that comment. "I needed proof," she said. "Something he couldn't talk his way out of." "And this is it?" I asked. She didn't answer right away. Instead, she turned onto a quieter street lined with taller apartment buildings. Not luxury, but not cheap either. The kind of place people move into when they think their life is stable. "There," she said quietly. She slowed the car. I followed her gaze. Halfway down the block, I saw it. A building with a small parking structure attached. Concrete and glass, dim exterior lighting. Nothing special at first glance. But then I saw the car. Lauren's car. Parked near the end of the row like it belonged there. My stomach dropped so hard I actually felt it physically. "That's hers," I said. "I know," she replied. We didn't move for a few seconds, just sat there watching the building like it might change if we stared long enough. Then I saw movement near the entrance, a figure stepping out of the glass doors. Even from a distance, I recognized him, Mark. Tall, dark jacket, hands in his pockets like he didn't have a single problem in the world. And right behind him, Lauren. My throat tightened instantly. She was laughing. I could see it even from the car. The way her head tilted back slightly, the casual way she touched his arm like it was nothing more than a normal, comfortable habit. Like she wasn't lying to someone else's husband. Like she hadn't just disappeared from my life under the excuse of needing space. I didn't realize I'd opened the car door until the cold air hit me harder. "Don't," she said quickly behind me. But I was already out. The world narrowed down to that sidewalk. I started walking. Fast at first, then slower as I got closer, like my body was trying to delay the moment my brain was already screaming toward. Lauren saw me first. I watched the exact second her expression changed. The smile didn't just fade, it collapsed. "Daniel," she said, her voice catching like she couldn't quite process it. Mark turned his head. And for a split second, the three of us just stood there in a triangle of silence that felt heavier than anything I'd ever experienced. "What are you doing here?" Lauren asked quickly. That was the first thing she said. Not "why are you here?" in a confused way, but "what are you doing here?" like I had broken an unspoken rule. I felt something inside me snap at that phrasing alone. "I think you know exactly what I'm doing here," I said. Her eyes flicked toward the woman behind me getting out of the car, and I saw it. Recognition, confusion, then panic. Mark shifted slightly, looking between all of us now. "Okay," he said slowly. "What is this?" Lauren stepped forward immediately. "This isn't what it looks like." I laughed once. It came out sharp, uncontrolled. "That's what you went with?" I said. "Not even going to try something new?" Her face tightened. Daniel, please, let me explain. Explain what? I snapped, my voice rising now. The space? The friend? The late-night texts? Or the part where I just saw you laughing with another man like I don't exist? Her eyes flickered, like she was searching for a way to steer this back into something manageable. But there wasn't anything manageable left. Mark finally spoke again. You're her boyfriend? He asked me. That word, boyfriend, hit differently than it should have. Smaller than what it actually was. Like reducing everything to something casual made it easier to process. I'm her partner, I said sharply. He let out a short breath, almost like a laugh, but not quite. She told me she was single, he said. That did it. Something in me went cold. I looked at Lauren. She didn't deny it. She didn't correct it. She just stood there, breathing slightly faster now, eyes moving between all of us like she was trying to calculate an escape route. Wow, I said quietly. Lauren shook her head quickly. It's not like that. I was going to tell you. When? I asked. After another 6 months? That's not fair, she shot back. And something about that, her finally getting defensive, felt almost worse than the lying, because it meant she still thought there was room to argue this. I took a step closer. Do you even hear yourself? I asked. You packed a bag and told me you needed space, so you could come here and do this? Her jaw tightened. I didn't mean for it to get messy, she said. That sentence almost made me laugh again, but I stopped myself. Messy, I repeated slowly. You think this is just messy? Silence. The woman behind me, Mark's wife, finally stepped forward now, coming into view beside me. Lauren saw her clearly for the first time, and I watched her face change again. Because now it wasn't just panic, it was realization. You, Lauren started. Yeah, she said calmly. Me. Mark looked between them, confusion rising now. Wait, he said. You two know each other? The woman nodded slightly. We do now. Lauren took a small step back, like the ground underneath her had shifted. This is insane, Lauren said under her breath. You followed me? I followed him, the woman corrected again. You just happened to be there. That distinction mattered more than it should have, because it removed Lauren from the center of control she thought she had. For the first time, she looked trapped, not emotionally, physically, surrounded by consequences she didn't get to talk her way out of, and I stood there watching her realize it. Lauren looked at me like she was still trying to find the version of me that would soften, that would take a breath, that would somehow step backward and make this easier for her to explain. But I wasn't that version of me anymore. The night had burned through all of that. Mark stood slightly off to the side now, arms lowered but tense, like his body hadn't decided whether this was a conversation or a confrontation. His eyes kept flicking between me, Lauren, and his wife, like he was trying to assemble a story out of pieces that didn't belong together. And maybe that's exactly what it was, a story that didn't belong together. Lauren finally spoke again, her voice quieter now, almost careful. Daniel, just come talk to me somewhere else, not here. I laughed under my breath again, but it didn't even feel like laughter anymore. It felt like air leaving a damaged system. Somewhere else? I repeated. You mean somewhere I'm not standing in front of the guy you've been sleeping with? Her face tightened immediately. That's not... Don't, I cut her off. Don't do that thing where you try to reshape it into something smaller. For a second, she actually went silent. That silence said more than anything else she'd said all night. Mark finally stepped forward a little. Okay, he said, voice controlled but clearly strained. Nobody told me there was a boyfriend involved. I was under the impression... You were under the impression she was single, I finished for him. He didn't argue. That alone made something in my chest tighten again, because it confirmed what I already knew in my gut. There wasn't just one lie happening here. There were multiple systems of it, layered on top of each other, all functioning at the same time. Lauren turned toward him quickly. Mark, please, I can explain this. His expression changed slightly at that. Not anger yet, more like disbelief trying to harden into something stable. Explain what exactly? He asked. She hesitated, and I watched it happen in real time, the moment she realized there wasn't a version of explanation that didn't collapse under its own weight. I didn't lie to you, she said finally, but it came out weaker than she intended. His eyebrows lifted slightly. You didn't lie to me? He repeated. She nodded quickly. I just didn't tell you everything. That phrasing made his jaw tightened. His wife let out a short, bitter sound behind me. Oh my God, she muttered. That's your defense? Lauren snapped her head toward her immediately. This isn't your place, she said sharply. That was the wrong move. I saw it in Mark's face instantly. Something shifted. His posture straightened slightly, like a wire tightening. My place? His wife echoed quietly. You're in my marriage and I'm not allowed a place? Lauren didn't respond to that. Instead, she looked back at me, like she was trying to pull the focus back to where she thought she could still manage it. Daniel, please, she said again, softer now. Just listen to me for 1 second.
I stared at her, really stared at her, and it hit me in a way I wasn't expecting. Not just anger, not just betrayal, but something more hollow, like watching someone you knew improvise their own reality in real time. You had 3 days, I said. 3 days to tell me anything, anything at all. Her lips parted slightly. I was going to. When? I snapped. On the way out? On the way back? Or when you got bored of him too? That landed. I saw it in her expression. Not because it wasn't untrue, because it was too close to something she didn't want named out loud. Mark shifted again. You were seeing him while you were with me? He asked Lauren now. His voice was lower. Not loud, not explosive. Worse, controlled. Lauren turned toward him quickly. It's not like that. But even she didn't sound convinced anymore. I exhaled sharply, running a hand through my hair, trying to physically keep myself from shaking apart. You know what the funniest part is? I said, mostly to myself now. I actually believed you. I believed the space thing. I sat in that apartment like an idiot wondering what I did wrong. Lauren flinched slightly at that. I never said you did anything wrong, she said. I looked up at her immediately. Are you serious? I asked. You disappeared, you lied. You built an entire second life and you still want to pretend I had nothing to do with it? Her eyes hardened slightly. I needed space, she said again, like repetition could stabilize it. That phrase again, space. I shook my head slowly. You keep saying that like it's a location, I said. Like it's somewhere people go instead of something they do when they don't want to face what they're doing. Silence again. Mark let out a slow breath through his nose. I think I need to sit down, he muttered. Nobody responded. His wife looked at him. You think? She said quietly. That was the first moment I saw something resembling real fracture in him. Not anger yet, not fully formed anger, but the beginning of it. Lauren noticed it too. Mark, listen to me, she said quickly. This got complicated, but I never intended for anyone to get hurt. I almost laughed again, but it got stuck halfway in my throat. Yeah, I said, because it's only complicated when people find out. She looked at me sharply. That's not fair. I stepped forward slightly this time. Fair? I repeated. You want to talk about fair now? The distance between us felt smaller suddenly, but not in a comforting way, more like pressure building in a closed space. I didn't deserve this, I said, quieter now. Neither of us did. Her expression shifted slightly at that. For a split second, I thought maybe something was going to break through. Maybe she was going to say something real. But instead she looked down briefly, then back up.
I didn't plan for it to go this far, she said again. That was it. That sentence. That was the limit of what she could offer. Not accountability, not clarity, just distance from responsibility. Her version of events always ended right before consequences showed up. Mark finally stepped back slightly, shaking his head. This is insane, he said again. But this time it sounded different. Less like confusion, more like realization settling in. His wife looked at him. I told you, she said quietly. I told you something wasn't right. He didn't respond. Lauren turned slightly toward the building entrance behind her, like she was considering retreating into it, disappearing again into whatever version of normal she'd built here. I saw it, and I spoke before she could move. Don't walk away, I said. She froze. Not fully turned, just paused. For the first time all night, she didn't have an immediate response. The air between all of us felt suspended, like the entire situation was waiting to see which direction it would finally collapse. And I realized then, something I hadn't fully admitted to myself yet. This wasn't the end of the story. It was the moment right before it became something worse.